centralize and go and help their people, because our people have found the process of getting registered also sometimes very cumbersome. The bureaucracy involved in getting your mining license, your artisanal license, is so bureaucratic, but government can make it easy for them. You make it easy. Once you make it easy for them, they are going to get those papers and they are going to start paying the taxes that you want them to pay. But they will not pay those taxes, because when one is in Mufumbo and thinks of traveling to Lusaka, the money they will spend apanga naya jefike ku Lusaka elokabiri mbokere mu kumufumbo nalasanga abapiti pandipangira abantu. But when the Ministry of Mines is hands-on, what are they doing in Lusaka? Just issuing press statements. I think they have to be serious. They have to go on the ground, collect the much needed revenue, support our local people that have used the initiative, who have been driven by poverty and lack, to go and camp in the bush so they can begin raising that revenue to keep their families. Government has to support initiatives, not stifle initiatives. That is the problem that we have now. So yes, it's a good gesture that government can try to go and get money from the IMF and the World Bank. Those multilateral institutions will not take you out of poverty. They will sustain you to continue running your affairs, but getting out of poverty is a question of making sure that you value add your resources. You make use of what you have to a point where we should go to the World Bank and IMF to get money so that we can empower our artisanal miners to have proper mining tools to dig out that gold, dig out that copper, dig out that mineral for the benefit of the country. And in that way, you are borrowing to invest in something that is productive rather than consumption.
How much, in your own, as a party and your own ideas, how much thinking is there to say, okay, so we have these miners, these small-scale miners, taking out the gold. Who do they sell it to? Because I've read people say this, that sometimes you find in some of these areas, and they always reference the DRC, that sometimes you find you have these illegal buyers of minerals who end up in these locations buying minerals off the small-scale farmers, off the small-scale miners, and then that revenue doesn't end up in government. It goes straight to briefcases, into a plane, and off it goes. So how much thinking are you putting as a party and as yourself to say, how do we fix that particular angle?
As CF, we have said that the best way to help the artisanal miners and small-scale miners is to make the market readily available. How do you do it? It's like the way government has been dealing with the Food Reserve Agency. You know, there's ready market for a farmer growing maize in Choma, in Kabu, and so on and so forth. It should be the same with our artisanal miners, because you see they struggle and they're being exploited. Zambia can be a very rich country, but I think the strategy with which we are buying minerals is not safeguarded. If they have ready market, government begins buying through agents, you know. They begin through Ministry of Mines, they create a body which begins buying minerals from small-scale miners. You'll see how much gold we are going to harvest in this country, because the volumes of gold going out is exponential. That has to come to an end. We have to conserve that, and there has to be a deliberate policy at making sure that you settle the mind of the miner. Nangwaleimba omu inishimaini, nangwaleimba ule artisanal miner, aleimba gold yako na ishuwa kutila, inaimba 1 kilo, inaimba half a kilo, na lanse ndinda la mashaife, it's guaranteed revenue from this. They will still exploit. We are from foreigners coming from outside. They will not exploit them, because there is a market already. CF in government wants to move in that direction, but the minerals that we are harvesting can be accounted for properly. And one of the ways is to take the artisanal miners, small-scale miners, very, very seriously, so that what they mine has got a ready market, and that market is within their confinement.
That's artisanal. What about the big ones, the big corporations, the big mines? Is there a thinking? Because again, different people have different thoughts around mining. Some people say nationalization. Some people say more taxes. What's the CF thinking in terms of?
The CF thinking in terms of the large conglomerates who are mining in our areas has been very clear. What we want to do ourselves is to stop the financial bleeding that is happening in the mining sector. You know, government is losing a lot of revenue as a result of these huge mines. You know, the correlation between what is being mined and what is being sold, more often than not, does not tally. And we want to arrest that. These people have got markets all over the world, and we won't restrict them to say just sell in Zambia. The policy of selling within the country is for those that might not find market out. But for those ones who've already got market out and they're selling at the London Metal Exchange, it is fine. But what we need to do ourselves as citizens first, we have said we want to close the financial seepages. We want to create a body, Luchi, like the one that Kaunda had in Union, Memako, where what is being mined and what is being sold is incongruence. Right now, you have a situation where, just like last year, I don't know if you remember, Luchi, where the Chinese declared that they imported more copper from Zambia, and yet the Bank of Zambia records were indicating that the copper that was sold to China was less than the records that China recorded. Now, what is causing that? It is that discrepancy, loss of revenue. Mining alone can contribute so much to the growth domestic product of our country. That is currently not happening because the carelessness with which the mining sector has been handled has been frightening. Mining can give us a lot of money. Look, we are doing cobalt now. How much is the price of cobalt? Maybe like $3,000 per metric ton. How much is the price of copper?
About 13,000.
About 30,000. Now, if copper is going at 18,000, cobalt is going at 33,000, then you've got gold now, I think is over 100,000 per kg. We have to be serious. Why do we always talk about copper and we don't talk about gold? Why do we always talk about copper and we don't talk about cobalt? These are things that should be discussed because we are only saying, oh, copper is going to this, and we insist on copper. Where there is copper, there is cobalt. It is high time that every mineral in this country is accounted for. And the wealth of this country must be invested solely in our country so that Zambia can get out of the current economic quagmire we are in. We are in this space that Tanzania at one time was in a space like this. But when you had Magufuli come in government, Magufuli was not a businessman. Magufuli was a practical person wanting the people of Tanzania to have what belonged to them. That Tanzanite was being mismanaged. When he came into government, he made sure that monies from the mines were going to the people. This is what the CFO do. We have seen so much drama around the mining sector. So many statements are being made, but the value for money is not being seen by the people. Look at Solwezi, look at Kalumbila, look at Lumwana. These places are producing gigantic deposits of coal, but it's all dust all over. It's all dust everywhere. Solwezi is still not developed, despite Solwezi being the new copper belt, but nothing much is happening there. Why? It's because the volumes of money leaving the country is too high.
Investors from the mines and trying to tell them that, listen, this needs to change, and them saying, but listen, we're the ones who are employing all these people. If you don't give us what we want, we leave. Do you worry that maybe that's the conversation that a lot of governments have failed to actually have with many of these mining?
No, I think it's something about that conversation. I think most of our leaders want to mining companies. So they can be supported by the mining companies. How did SATA manage to raise the mineral tax from is it 1% he found it to 6%? They complained and they said Zambia has to get the benefits of what we are mining in this country. He insisted. And you saw what happened when our colleagues in the UPND came in government. They reduced the mineral tax from 6 to 3%. So meaning revenue loss for our country. Despite having shortage of drugs in the hospitals, we continue losing revenue in the mining sector which God has given us. Now these are things that we are going to sit down with our colleagues in the mining sector. It must be a win-win situation. We want the investors to win, but we also want our people to win. This is how Kaunda did it. This is how Manawasa did it. This is how SATA did it. And I think this is how the CF will do it. We need to make an environment in the mining sector that responds to the needs of our country, instead of the country responding always to the mining conglomerates. I think it's high time a win-win situation was put in place.
What about jobs, job creation? I know that the one thing that we don't do very well in this country is we don't normally have statistics in terms of job creation. We have statistics on, the cost of living. We have inflation statistics and all of those, but we rarely ever get actual statistics in terms of how many jobs have been created on a year-to-year what's the CF's plan of getting mopping up many people that are graduating from many schools and having jobs?
The truth of the matter is that you're not going to create jobs in this country if you don't go industrialization, if you don't industrialize. Because what is happening in our country is that we are shipping jobs outside and we are not helping our local people here. When you begin exporting raw copper like we are doing, the value addition is happening outside our borders. And it is from there, when they're doing value addition, that jobs are being created. The CF believes that Chirindawa Bamba no Wakanyaku Inyakani, charity begins at home. So we believe that we are going to make sure ourselves that we begin value addition, and it will begin as soon as we get into government. People ask a question, no, but how will you do it? You know, you cannot industrialize with limited energy like we have now. That is why, when I had time to be in government, we embarked on a project of having the nuclear power plant facility being erected here in Zambia. It's a bit, it has been abandoned. The CF in government will begin immediately, in earnest, to ensure that the nuclear power plant facility is completed, and the memorandum of understanding that was done between the Russian Federation and the Republic of Zambia is enhanced and enforced, so that immediately we begin seeing power in this country. Once we do that, we are going to stop exporting copper and then importing bullets from China. We have to see whether we can continue making bullets from Perpetual, as it was before in Serengeti, or we find another place where we can begin making our own bullets. And begin exporting them to the region. Zambia is a member of speaking to a market that Zambia can use. We want to use that market to supply what we can value add here. We have got Mukola tree here. We don't even use the benefits of Mukola tree. Logs are going every day outside the country to China. We have to stop that. We have to ensure that we begin value adding. We want technology from China. We want them to come in here, go into Kasempa where we've got Mukola trees, and begin value adding them. We know that there are so many artifacts that can come from Mukola tree. We also know the medicinal value of antiretroviral drugs from Mukola tree. We know the bats for guns are coming from Mukola tree. We know the wood on the base is coming from Mukola tree. So, imagine what an industry can have. Another thing is that we have got manganese in this country, got cobalt in this country. One of the most important aspects of those cell phone batteries is the same product we have of cobalt in this country. So why not begin talking to companies like Samsung, to see if Zambia can begin creating batteries for cell phones here, and we begin selling them out to the region. These are initiatives that the CF is going to work on when we come into government. But what
required for that value addition, correct?
Yes, there's a lot of revenue that is required, and that revenue is in this country. I was just talking a while ago, Lucy, that the mining sector is going to help us provide that much needed revenue. We have emeralds in this country. Nobody talks about emeralds. Look, industries need to speak to one another. But for us in the citizens first, we have already identified agriculture as one of the quickest industries or sectors that is going to help propel the industrial base. Because with agriculture, it's like a vicious cycle. So once you produce your maize, you give your farmers a hammer mill to produce, they begin producing feed for chicken, for pigs. Already you are value adding and you are creating jobs already there. you know. And we want to export some, we want to export meal, we want to export chicken feed and so on and so forth. You'll find that the amount of money that you are going to get in as a country will be exponential. You can start from there. Then you look at other sectors. But at the end of the day, jobs will already start getting created in the agriculture sector, which now you can take to the mining sector, go to the health sector, go to other sectors of the economy, while building our own the agriculture sector.
One of the biggest weaknesses, and you know this because I think you and I have said this before, but I am curious whether anything has changed since the last time we spoke many years ago about this. But if you go, depending on where you go, and you travel more than I do, so you know this better than I do, but depending on where you go in this country, there's very little activity, there's very little economic activity that happens. How do we fix that? How do we change that? How do we have a situation where if you go to northern province, there is economic activity that's happening there that's not dependent on government? If you go to western, similar. Southern, similar. How do we get more economic activity that then benefits, you know, people in those areas, rather than a situation that we have now where you need government, you need whether it's government, civil service jobs, that's what spurs some form of economic activity in those areas.
Yeah, actually we have to move away from that. You know, 62 years after independence, we need to migrate from that. Dr. Kaunda, I was very serious on issues of research and development, and the CF equally is serious on research and development. It is important to know that each area in this country can do some good economic activity for ourselves, and then that is how now you begin developing your country. That's how China did it. The model China used, and Zambia adopted that the Chinese model during the Kaunda time, to develop industries in the various districts. I think the CF believes that that is the way to go. There is a lot that should happen in Impika, but it's not happening now. Why? Because the concentration is probably just in Lumwana, just doing the copper there. But it doesn't mean that what is happening in Impika, when they discover their gold, I think somehow we should have made sure that we have these well-known people that have made it in the mining sector, businesses that can go in there. The Zambians, I'm sure, who would have been recruited to go and run or manage and see how they can properly harness those areas instead of just leaving it like that, and then now you start removing people from that, illegal miners. Had it been properly planned and managed, we would not even be calling our own people illegal miners. So the CF in government would want to ensure that we understand what is it that is in Kalomo. Kalomo is good for ranching. We have to develop and invest in that. And that's why the private players, America has been developed not by government, and they're fronting people to do that.
I think that there can never be a situation like if you don't have a government connection, if you don't have government support, then your business will flounder.
It is the way government has done it. That is why we have said ourselves that we have to move away from the UPND model of unless you supported us, you voted for us, you're not going to get a business. CF in government has said businessmen and women are non-partisan. Businessmen and women do not belong to any political party. They only belong to their money-spinning ventures. That's what they belong. So us in government, we have said we will not look at the face or whatever that discriminates a person. We are going to ensure that we look at the papers. Is the person qualified in this specific area they want to do business in? Last night I was on Prime TV and I was telling them that CF in government will make sure that a business contract of $20 million and below will not be given to any outsider. it will have to be given to a Zambian company, wholly owned 100% Zambian company. They're the ones that are going to get any business of $20 million going down. Why do we say that?
Well, that's why.
It's because we want to empower Zambians. Luchi, it is sad in this country that even when a Zambian wins a tender of $5 million, they have to go and look for somebody from outside to sell their contract to them. They give them maybe a $500,000 and they remain with a larger contract and they execute it. What that does is that it is taking away capital from our country. That has to come to an end. And we have said, if we discover that you have given out the contract which you won as a Zambian company, you've managed to be fronted by a foreign entity, you'll be charged once we discover for economic sabotage. Because it's high time we began helping Zambians. Zambians are struggling. Businesses in this country are bleeding. Why are they bleeding? It's because most of the businesses are not being given to them. They have to struggle. Even when you supply Kuma prisons in the law, you supply your beans, you supply your whatever Kuma prisons. Actually,
and that's what I wanted to say.
How do you survive?
That's what I wanted to say. I wanted to say that maybe the problem is not necessarily that Zambians are selling these contracts to elsewhere, but the reason why they do this is because there's no capital. If I win a tender, for example, at the moment, if I win a tender, how much capacity do I have to first of all supply? I don't have capacity. I need to go to a bank and say, listen, give me the funds. Or I need to, and then when I get this, I then have to hope that you as government pays me on time, so then I can pay this loan. And that's how many suppliers, function. And maybe that's why they then decide, you know what, let me take a shortcut, because I don't have access to capital, but the foreign guys have access to capital.
I'm not sure you are right, and this is what the Citizens First is looking at. We want to create a sense of security for our businessmen and women. We want to make sure that when a businessman gets a contract, the banks themselves must be responding favorably. And this is something that we'll need to see how we can sit down with our banks. Because first of all, the interest rates at the banks are very prohibitive. These are chasing businessmen and women away from going there to even go and get money. Because when they find the interest rates going as high as 30%, 32%, 37%, then you begin thinking these are shilos, they are not banks. That is a problem. Government must have a deliberate policy. The same way that Malaysia has done it. It's the same way that we have seen in countries like Botswana. They have done that. Zambia too must begin looking at how those small businessmen and women can survive, as opposed to leaving them to the harsh weather or harsh conditions prevailing on the market. Look at China. I think China is the best example to tell you how they have been helping their businessmen and women make it outside. China, the Chinese government takes a hand in ensuring that maybe they give them at very limited interest rates, they get money, and the period of repayment is also well defined. They are comfortable with it. One can make their business, survive within it, and be able to pay their loans, as opposed to what we have in this country. There is limited, if at all zero, initiative to help our people. We are failing to make it in markets like the DRC Congo. The DRC Congo, we should have had many Zambians making it there. But because there is no initiative from government to push our people there, they can't make it. We should be making it in countries like Mozambique, South Africa, Botswana. We can't make it because our government is all seated here giving you speeches day after day, and they're failing to help the entrepreneurs that they should be helping.
I had a conversation with somebody, I won't say his name, but and it was an off-air conversation even though he was on radio, but and he said that there's a conversation that we don't have as a people. This is population. That our population is growing at a rate that our GDP just can't handle. And until we start having this conversation in terms of how do we match our population growth with our GDP, we will forever be poor.
Well, to some extent it could be right. Yeah. The population is growing beyond the GDP statistics. And why is that? Again, it comes back to the same thing that I've been talking about, Luchi. It is a lack. What can we value add to export? Zambia will continue having that problem. CF in government will deal with that. and we know how to deal with it because
How do you know how to deal with it?
because we are going to stop this business of investing more in outsiders than the locals. That's what is happening now. Luchi, the people that are running big businesses go on contracts, even just the simple Lusaka and Dollar Geo carriageway. You have given it, and yet it's a PPP, but you have given it even to outsiders, and you use NAPSA and you use workers' compensation, to fund that project, monies from Zambian people, and you give a foreign entity to run that project. I think for me that's a mistake. That must stop. That project should have been given to a Zambian because they're using Zambian money. But no, for the European it is fine. So how do you expect? How do you expect the population growth and the GDP to be talking to one another? They can't, because you are investing in foreign hands as opposed to investing in your own locals. Obasanjo, how Nigerians have big banks today. You have the Dangotes of this world. They're there. Why? It's because of the deliberate policies that were made. I remember in South Africa during the 2010 World Cup, there was a project to construct a stadium. I think it was in Durban, and there were tenders that were done. The South African government at that time sat and found that one of the foreign countries was cheaper than a South African company. They made a decision to say, yes, this foreign entity is cheaper than the South African company, but for reasons of empowering our own people, we are going to take this one who is a bit more expensive than this one because the money is for this person who's paying this country as opposed to this country, this other company. That is the attitude. That is the mentality Zambians should have, leaders should have. But no, they don't want that. We coming in government this year, we are going to change the narrative and ensure that we allow our Zambian citizens, our Zambian businesses, and see how best we can help them. That is the role of government, as opposed to what we are saying. You can't compete without capital with someone who's coming from a country where their governments are helping them make it. You are on your own. The conditions are harsh, and you want to compete evenly. And so, how can you talk about GDP and being in tandem with the population growth? You can't. We'll still have that problem for as long as we fail to empower our own people. That is why we are calling our party Citizens First. It must be Zambians first. Empower Zambians first. Then the rest we can talk.
Is there a thinking around possibly changing what CDF currently looks like? Because again, when you talk about industrialization, you need revenue. At the moment, there's just a basket of revenue that's out there that's going around various constituencies. You can make the argument whether or not there is real development that's taking place, But what's the thinking behind Citizens First CDF idea?
I'll tell you that the CDF has been mismanaged and mishandled. The CDF, as I told you last time, was an idea mooted in West Africa in Senegal. And it was to help parliamentarians to cut the bureaucracies of central governance. But here, they get that and make it as if it is the ultimate thing. That's why CDF has not answered the challenges. First of all, they are getting money from line expenditures of central government. They are getting money from Ministry of Health. They're getting money from the line budget of Ministry of Community Development. They're getting line budgets from Ministry of Tourism, Ministry of Education, and so on and so forth. That's why they're getting the same money. So it's just money they're just reducing the budgets in Lusaka and take the monies in the various constituencies, which money is not even there. Today you have CDF buying police vehicles. Why would CDF? Now, it is these problems and lack of understanding of governance that has brought us where we are today. We should have a situation where you begin decentralizing slowly. So CF in government will make sure that the process of decentralization is one that will even make communities where we're centralizing be able to absorb the monies that will be given. Right now we have a situation where some constituencies are suffocating because of just the 5 million water which you have given them, and they can't process it. Now, you give them 48 million.
But whose fault is it?
It's the fault of the government that has not thought through things. Because when you are giving money...
But you have very educated technocrats in many of these constituencies.
Yeah, but these technocrats are not being consulted, and that's the problem again. They have not understood the role of civil servants. When we come into government as citizens first, we'll make sure that the role of civil servants is amplified, enhanced, and we ensure that the people get to understand the role of civil servants. I'm a civil servants, no matter we are quiet, completely quiet. But don't worry, civil servants, we are coming, and we'll ensure that, because I'm a former civil servant, as you know, I'm not a typical politician like most people. I am coming from the civil service. I spent most of my time there in the civil service, rising through the ranks. So I know the frustrations that are going on. I'm a technocrat, but in they would continue doing what they want to do without listening to technocrats. And at the end of the day, you remain with CDF 48 million you are giving to a constituency in Chipiri, giving to a constituency in Kaputa, giving to a constituency, which constituencies will not be able to absorb that kind of money. Because even government itself there, by Ministry of Health, by Nani, they don't even receive that kind of money we're talking about. Now, it's what happens when people don't listen to people that they should be listening to. That is what has brought UPND down.
I'm curious, why wouldn't they be able to absorb the 38 million?
First of all,
so here's the thing. I say that for 4 years now, we're going into year 5, or we are in year 5 of CDM. I always say that we should have been seeing big development. That's where I argue with development people. I always say that if you take that amount of money over the past 4 years, you throw it in my constituency in Monze, I should be able to see it when I go there. I should be able to see and say, okay, here this is where the money has gone to. Desks, okay, hospital, that's fine. But it's not, it doesn't feel like real development, right? And then I wonder, when you say now that they don't absorb this money, I think, but wait, why are they not absorbing it?
They can't absorb it because
they don't know what to do with it?
No.
Is it because you in Lusaka should be telling them, listen, rather than the situation you have now, which is that they decide what they bring, it should be us in Lusaka saying, do this development.
In fact, let me tell you what happens on CDF. In fact, CDF, it has been compartmentalized. They have told them, for this sector you can spend this, for this you can spend this, for this you can spend this, for this you can spend this, for loans it's this, for education it is this. So all the monies they have already told them on how to spend. From where? From Ministry of Local Government, which is Lusaka. Now, if you're talking about centralization, you should have allowed the locals there to spend the way they understand and interpret the environment. That is not happening. Centralization requires enhancement of the local community. That is not happening because they can't use the money in that fashion, because they've already given them guidelines from Lusaka. That is not centralization. And you asked me a question: why can't they absorb the money? They can't absorb the money because, first of all, they don't have the infrastructure to absorb that money. Who is at a constituency office? Who is there? It is a guard, the secretary, and the personal assistant to member of parliament. Now the councils are helping them. How many members of staff do you have at the council? Because when you go to a district like Kasama, where I'm coming from, you've got Lukasha and receive 48 million. You've got Kasama Central to receive 48 million. So in all, they've got about 6 million kwacha. Now tell me, how are they going now to start? And how many officers do you have at the council? Or you have about 8 of them. The 8 of them are required to now sit, plan, and execute. We are joking here. We are joking. That is not the way you expend money like that. That is why year in and year out, go and ask them that, Ministry of Finance. Monies are coming back. Just in December, monies were going back, if at all there was even money, because what we have come to understand about this CDF, of our colleagues, the UPND, it is money on paper. Practically, they have received 5 billion. Ask them when you invite them here. No constituency so far has ever received the amount of monies that they have been saying that they are dispersing. Why haven't they received? Because they don't give them the monies. Now, it's what they say, you can't have development in that fashion when you are telling people we are giving you this kind of money, when in actual fact, there is no money that you are giving them. That is the problem with the CDF. And when we come into government, we are going to review it. We want CDF to be actual. If we say CDF you'll be receiving 10 million, the actual 10 million will be received. Not you are mentioning figures and what you are giving them is less. That is not the way government works. That is not the way development comes. That is how governments have failed to go anywhere. That's how communities have failed to develop. And the CF is coming in government to stop that road.
Do you think we can ever get to a place where there is real decentralization?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Is that under CF?
The CF will make sure that we begin centralization.
Because real decentralization is similar to what they have, although it's a state system, but it's similar to what similar to what they have in the US. States, where states decide, provinces should be able to decide what we do with the funds that are given to us or what that the province makes. We decide what we do with it.
When I was Minister of Lands, I began the process of decentralizing the issuance of title deeds. Before, when I was minister, all title deeds which were being gotten from Lusaka. And I said, why? $. Now, that is decentralizing. Say, the issuance of passports. Instead of Lusaka being the only place which should give you a passport, Ndola can start giving passports. Choma should start giving passports. Kasama should begin giving passports. That is decentralizing without allowing your people to travel to one particular place. So, yes, you can do decentralization without becoming a federal state. And the CF government will ensure that we decentralize as much as possible and go to Korea and Lusaka, just increasing corruption. Issue title, issue licenses, and that is how government should be working when we come into government.
Okay, let me take a little break for news. We'll be back very shortly. Our guest this morning is the president of the Citizens First. We'll be back just after the community news with your calls as well as your SMSs.
National Milling Corporation, Zambia's pride, nationwide. The headlines: PS Kalusa cautions engineers over drainage system, and elephant attacks 14-year-old Kasenengwa girl. With the community news, I am Patti Mogando. Lusaka Province Permanent Secretary Joe Kalusa has directed local authority engineers to redesign drainages in Lusaka district to combat flooding. Engineer Kalusa has attributed improper drainage designs to the flooding being experienced in the province. Zanis reports that the Permanent Secretary said this during the District Disaster Management Committee meeting with waste management stakeholders in Lusaka district. Engineer Kalusa also stressed making available funding for waste management firms in order for them to operate effectively and cautioned waste management companies to handle duties efficiently. The Lusaka Province Permanent Secretary also directed the local authority to monitor waste management companies closely. A 14-year-old girl of Kasenengwa district in the Eastern Province is nursing injuries at Chipata Central Hospital after being attacked by a stray elephant. Confirming the matter to Zanis in Chipata yesterday, Eastern Province Police Commanding Officer Robertson Mwemba said the victim sustained a deep cut on the right thigh and body pains. Mr. Mwemba revealed that his office received information about a stray elephant last week and that officers from the Department of National Parks and Wildlife were engaged. He explained that the victim was rescued by community members who heard noises and rushed to the scene, adding that the juvenile was operated on at Chipata Central Hospital when taken for medical examination and that her condition is currently stable. Turn the community news to the headlines once again. PS Kalusa cautions engineers over drainage system, and elephant attacks 14-year-old Kasenengwa girl. Ends the community news. Keep listening to Let the People Talk. The community news was brought to you with the compliments of National Milling Corporation. National Milling Corporation, Zambia's pride nationwide.
Mtala na mbela ati mzimayi wapaka ntemba vuta. Vuta cha? Ati vantu vachitunga tantama mtala. Vina wachitupakinga mamotoka. Na mataipa mkosi sofu. Wavuta na chia ni mzimayi. Vitumbuwa vameni. Wanzake munga siwa lipo ka? Ilunga munga ni makwala. Vugwila mwile vachiboy. Ndava vacha.
Imwe boza. Simu mkwala iyai.
Manje ni vicha?
Ni vitumbuwa flour mix yaba National Milling Corporation. Vichoka. Flour yoko nzeka kudala. Nekufaka machebe manzi na isti basi. Wafrainga.
Vitumbuwa flour mix. Ndi flour. Osakaniza kare. Kwa hiyo, ndikungo frainga chabe musavuta. Vitumbuwa flour mix. Wasopano, apezeka mumatumba 10 kgs kuchokela ku abunzi anu antauzoze. Awa ndi a National Milling Corporation. National Milling Corporation. Zambia's pride nationwide.
It's 10:07. Welcome back to Let the People Talk. Our guest on the program this morning, the president of the Citizens First, Eric Kalaba, is with us this morning. Before I go to phone calls and text messages, I want to ask you something. You mentioned it very briefly. You talked about nuclear in terms of energy, as a solution. But at the moment, I don't know if you've seen this, but at the moment there is a huge conversation that people are having about, number one, it's how much units of electricity are going, and how fast they're depleting. Does that worry you? Does that concern you? Just how much people are buying electricity at?
I'm a light now, Watch time allowed 100 kwacha. You only get maybe about 20 or 25.
No, actually, you should get more.
Yeah, but I don't have the exact.
I have the exact because I bought electricity today in the morning. So
100, how much?
I bought for 200. I got 213 units. So it looks like the ones who are buying for anything less than 200, you will be able to get at least 200, unless it's.
That's at the beginning of the month.
Yes, at the beginning.
Yes.
But it's the ones who are buying for. I'll give you an example. I want to be practical. I'll give you an example. I was at my sister's house yesterday. It was her first purchase of electricity yesterday. Because there are a few pumps in the yard, so she bought electricity for 3,000 kwacha. I thought it would be a lot more. It was 900 units, and I thought that is excessive.
It's very expensive.
That is excessive.
Very, very expensive, and it's because the government, as you know, they increased the tariffs for electricity last time, and they increased at a time when citizens did not even have power. Now they have given you power which that withheld for some time, and it's like simultaneously pay them a light. Somehow they are saying, well, I'm pay them a light, but I'm panic. You know, you don't do that. The cost of electricity has just become very expensive. I want to because salaries are not increasing. The civil servants up to now, as when they are speaking, they have not seen any increment in the salaries. So it is things like this that we're talking about. That's why we need to come in and provide solutions to this problem.
But is that the
Bringing
devil?
in-
Is that the devil of cost-reflective tariffs that many people are
It
speaking
is,
about?
it is, it
Yeah.
is. They are saying it's cost reflective tariffs were the cheapest in the region and therefore we needed to be like other regions. I mean, how do you govern a country like that? The job of government is to ensure that they provide relief to their people. And one of the ways to provide relief is for government to ensure that they bring down the cost of electricity as much as they should. But no, they have said we have to make them cost reflective. And yet they are busy giving mining incentives, tax incentives, tax holidays to mining conglomerates in the mining sector. It is this discrepancy I'm talking about. They just don't care about the ordinary people. Abantu balechula. And you can pay them master 200 luchi. Kwacha, and then you get them units, 3,000. You get them units 900. And that's at the beginning of the month. Let them again buy 3,000 and you see how many units they'll get. It is basically robbing your own citizens. And this has to be looked at.
So is the thinking at the moment, because this might be new thinking, I don't know whether you've sat down to think about this, but is the thinking from CF to say when we come in, we might have to have a conversation about the cost reflectiveness of this?
Definitely.
And making it, what is it, subsidizing?
I mean, you have to make it affordable. It's the job of government.
So is it
to make sure that
subsidizing then?
you subsidize it, and you have to do that so that your people can at least make it manageable. But when you say it is cost reflective, of course I understand. Somebody will call here and tell you that look, ZESCO has got a lot of
They've got a lot of debt.
obligations
Yes.
that they need to service, and that it's by us paying cost effective tariffs that will make ZESCO afloat, and that without doing that ZESCO will be underperforming and what. But first of all, what we should understand, why was ZESCO created in the first place? It was created to provide a service to the people of Zambia. There was a time we were not even paying anything for this ZESCO. Then we began paying, and then there was a time we used to, first of all, they would give you power, and then you pay at the month end. And now they changed that. Now it is you pay and then it will show. But now they have exposed us to harsh conditions of Amalite. This thing has to be addressed. This thing has to be dealt with. We come in government, we'll deal with it aggressively so, and make people have electricity for real. Not what is happening.
Can you
And pay Amalite, but on the other hand, let me poker. Using it tariffs.
Can you ever have
The
a
end product alone, but make sure that the farmers, as they get their fertilizer, they're getting it cheaper. Make sure that the farmers, as they're getting their seed, they're getting it cheaper. And how do they get it cheaper? You have to look at the fuel. How much are they selling? How much are we buying this fuel? How can we work on the fuel structure to make sure that we deal with evidently the price of meal which keeps on escalating? That is how you deal with those things. Now, it's the same with electricity. This electricity thing, you just cannot leave it the way it is. You have to deal with it. Go it subsidize. Whatever word you have to use, it is the job of government and show me a country in the world that does not subsidize. Go to the United Arab Emirates. Go to Qatar today. In Qatar, even fuel is almost free. You go to countries like Botswana, countries like, which countries are not subsidizing their citizens? They want to see which area can we subsidize for production to be enhanced. That is how a government looks at its people. You don't expose your people to harsh conditions because ZESCO should meet its obligations. That is why we elected you, Iwe. Stand up, go and find solutions. Don't overburden your people.
Okay, let me go to the phone. I know a lot of people want to talk to you this morning.
Unit. Nationally, Singana 300, Nana 430 units. No, Mamu next about 32. Go under to Wuta Tanko for Venazambi. Ow. No, it's on the Falkland in never Kalaba. Takira, Mama opposition, Muntakan. Antunga Marimoneti Shop Milakuman. Badi Birama boat, and I want to Barelo de Chateau. Who take away Tankuivama boat? The moment I'm a pilot, you the Papa who in a Germany. By Oyonta Kama pilot in Mawina Mukuiva. Nailenia Kutawama, Nateku Katina to win with Ungabariva. Maremon, what about Kalaba, Ifari, Norvengish or Amagos Kuri, other nanny, prayer. Ifari would have seen them. Nicola Tom in a press. So the permanent robot dividing where they have been to Fimo, if you are feeding Goku, which the Romantic contact. Ekuyokupiva by ICC Avarelo. Ever stand facilitate Ethiopia is one minute. So number Muko Kwasi, Muko for Zambia, whoever they do it, Remember Norway. And to a papa. To who would take to a papa, the one time for Zambia. Muko Pusha, Imora President. Kena Mumarava, my president, Javakula. Abakula ngusura toile imo ku bantu ba president bafuna bare isura ma hospitals bafuna bare isura ma clinic bafuna bare permission na party
Mr. Mishek, your line is fading off, but thank you very much. I think we get the question. Thank you very much. Hello, good morning. Good morning. What's your name, sir?
Mr. Ntele.
Okay, Mr. Ntele, go ahead.
President Kalaba, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Ntele. I used to call you and you have stopped answering me. Now, quick one. President, I don't know who's supposed to rescue Zambia. Is it an individual as you are, I'm talking about the party. I know that you have been going under difficulties over this situation. Now, Mr. Kalaba, fuel has been reduced, electricity has gone up. I don't know what scenario they are using in Nigeria. Now, my big question is this, Mr. Kalaba. You know, I'm not clear about our president. A lot what I've seen in his social media, no, he has gone to the farm. Now my question, for how long the president should be absent, should go for leave? We have to know that, no, I know that somebody can go for 7 days, 21 days, he has been out for so many times. And is it advised of the president operating to another country? I know that he has to go countrywide. I've been told that he has been in the farm. I don't know whether he's back or how true is it. Now my question, Makalaba. Why can't you just, you know, humans, people are crying that background about Katana, but leadership, there's a lot of language. So as it is, I know maybe it can be the last day to stand on the Phoenix. What's way forward as a citizen? Are you going to go alone? Are you going to stand with other opposition party? Please, Mr. Kalaba, help discuss it. No, like free education, which is there, which is good. You can't blame everything. There's a lot of issues, talk about farming and so on, people that haven't been paid and so on and so on. So we are saying, salaries, that's two sides. Now if it means you are coming tomorrow, how are we going to help with these things? Thank you, good morning.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Mr. Let me take another one. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Good morning, what's your name, sir?
My name is Elijah Wali. And senior bank citizen. How are you, Uchi Esquire, and how are you, Kalaba Esquire?
We are well, thank you. Go ahead with your question, sir.
The sisters have heard the constitution, although I studied the other late, but I've appreciated this constitution. The major problem we have in Zambia now, and repeat, I'm UPND,
UPNB. So when I'm saying this, I'm not saying out of animosity or acrimony or antipathy. I'm saying in good faith. The problem we have now is that we do not have programs as such. We do not have policies as such. What we have in Zambia, and you take my words very seriously, Honorable Kalaba, we have what I call presidential itineraries. Presidential itineraries, ministerial itineraries. What do I mean by that? Every time you hear the president say this, the president says that, the president says this. Even the way the cabinet meets now is just like a coca session. We will see 3 hours. The other day with my friend, Minister of Information, we had the cabinet yesterday, and we see that these are presidential the itinerary. What we need in Zambia is to have a body. As you are doing unique. You have a cabinet meeting. You have whatever body you need. You have got the policies. You have got, especially during the time of who is this man, the late Manawata. It was a government of policies. But this time, you don't have policies. It's all, you are referring to Exodus 20:1 to 10. President said this. President said it. No, 740. So what I'm appealing to my party, UPND, is this. Find ways and means of coming up with programs, not depending on the presidential directives, the presidential itineraries. No.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay, Professor Ngwale, thank you very much. Again, I think we get the question. Do you want to quickly respond? There are 3. I'll let you respond. I can remind you of some of them if you want.
I think for Professor Ngwale, I think there's nothing I can say because it's not directed to me. It's directed to his party.
But sorry, no, but actually there is. I think there might be. So let me rephrase it for him. This thing about there not being policies. Do you think, if you look back at the past 4 years, would you say that there's been way more conversations, way more talk than there have been actual policies that can then help the people?
Well, first of all, whatever the president says is policy.
Okay.
That is the position of cabinet.
Okay.
Whatever the president pronounces becomes policy.
But there's lack of activity.
But there's lack of implementation.
Okay.
I mean, typical. I think what Mr. Ngwale was failing to tell the Zambian people is that Mr. Ichilema is just talking the talk, and there is no action happening. So Mr. Ngwale, I think that's what you wanted to say. The UPN is full of talk and no action. That is why you see that things are just in overdrive. Things are happening on their own, no pilots. It's just on its own, autopilot. And that's a problem that we have in the country now. You need a leader that is firm, that is strong, a leader that knows how to navigate issues, as opposed to the playing we are seeing around here. Mr. Ntele says I don't pick up his calls. I don't remember, Mr. Ntele. Please, after the program, you are free to call me, sir. I will definitely pick up your call. I've got no reason not to pick your call. You've raised the issue of Mr. Ntele was talking about.
He's talking about leave. Among other things, how long should the president go on leave?
How long should the president
and
go
he
on
mentioned
leave
farmers and farmers not being paid
on
time.
Yeah, in fact, Mr. Taylor wanted to deal with the issue of farmers. I think Mr. Ichilema has made a mockery of our farmers. He has never taken our farmers seriously. Because if he did, he would not have found money for Bill 7. And he doesn't find money for our farmers. This is a mockery to our farmers, and you can't grow farming in that particular with that particular attitude. If Dr. Kaunda, who ruled this country for 27 years, was managing farming the way Mr. Kainde Ichilema is managing farming, Kaunda would not have stayed for 27 years. The Zambians will not allow Ichilema to go beyond August this year, because they have seen his behavior. It is one that is not promoting farming. If there is a community, today as you and I are speaking, my farmers, my young drivers, my taxi and bus drivers, but we're neglected. Nobody is there to speak for them. But that is why we as CF are coming on board to ensure that dignity to a farmer is restored. The FRA is under instruction. Once you buy maize, and I want to say this at the expense of sounding like a broken rocket, the FRA today. the following day. What a check here, because whatever maize you are getting, you should have the money. People should not be able to wait for 6 months, 3 months, and now it's becoming a norm that you have to wait for 1 year, you have to wait for 6 months, 7 months before you get your money. That is not right.
But it's been a norm.
That
for a
is
long
robbing.
time, hasn't it?
I'm saying it should not be a norm.
Okay.
That is robbing our people. That is discouraging farming. That's why a lot of people are shunning farming, because farming is very intensive. I'm a farmer myself, Roger. I understand what it entails. Farming is capital intensive, labor intensive, and then pakupoka umufundo ni nkono, pakubyala ni problem, pakushitisha ni problem, pakupokendera ni problem. How can you go in a business like that? That's not the way it ought to be. That is why we have people that have never graduated from being small-scale farmers to commercial farmers. They have remained stagnant year in and year out. Why? Because the environment is harsh for a farmer. CF in government has to change that. The FRA, the way they'll be buying maize will be different. I must scale for scale to buy maize.
In other words,
Masaka.
In other words, there'll be an infinite budget line.
Not infinite budget line. What you are buying, you need to pay for it instantly. Instantly. You cannot get people's products. Even in the shop, when you go in the shop, you're buying something. You don't get and say, I'll pay it tomorrow because of government. You get and you pay. That's how you sustain a business.
But
earlier on, you and I were talking about small-scale businesses suffocating in this country.
Yeah.
It is this same attitude of government that is killing our farmers. We have to stop it. We have to devise a method of encouraging farming. Otherwise, there's nowhere we're going. Malawi, our neighbors here, Malawi, they are able to look after their farmers. Malawi does not have copper that you have. Malawi is depending on agriculture. That is why today we can grow tobacco, and we're taking it to Malawi for processing. Why? Because the Malawans have taken agriculture seriously. Here we're just playing, just talking the talk. And then Mr. Tele says the president goes and stays in, was it in Choma? For 1 month or so? When? I don't know how long the president who is serious should be taking leave of his duty. But obviously a month away from office is exaggerated. And the president also should also learn to take holidays elsewhere in the country. He should be finding himself in Mfue. He takes leave there in Mfue. Akaunda was always going there. He can as well go there. You know, he can go on the copper belt. That is why the copper belt is having a problems when say I'm a mining here. First of all, I think he's about the first president who has never known the copper belt. You know, when you look at Kaunda, he understood the copper belt very well. He lived there. You look at Chiluba. Chiluba was a product of the copper belt. You look at Mwanawasa, copper belt. You look at Rupia Banda, his businesses on the copper belt. You look at Vasata, copper belt. So it is only him who has not taken interest in the copper belt, and that is why you have got a lot of problems on the copper belt. Instead of him taking time to be on the copper belt to understand the plight of our miners, he's busy saying we're exterminating the illegal miners from there. That is not the way to look after our mining community.
Okay.
CF in government will change the narrative. Then the first one, Mr. Mishek, was talking about uniting. Are you going to stand alone by CF and what? Look, Luchi, many people have asked me that question, and I have been belaboring to answer it, because there's been a notion that has been sent out there in the public. No, Kalaba aliba pompas. Kalaba atafokugombana abantu banangu. Kalaba wants to work alone. And I ask the people saying that, who do you want me to work with? We spent time in Donze. Not Donze, in Uka. We spent time in Uka for 1 year, 3 months we were in Uka. Then Uka did not work out. They went and created, the PF went and created Donze. When they create that Donze, right now, you know what is happening in Donze. It's a house on fire. And then you want me to leave a house which is stable here. I'm in CF, I leave it, because you are saying we should come together. I go and say, okay, I know your house is in fire, but can I spend the night here? We have said, we want our colleagues to sort out their internal challenges with PF. Once our PF sorts out their internal challenges, we don't want to be part of any confusion as CF. Let them sort out their internal challenges. Once they finish their internal challenges, they can come and talk to us. For now, Mr. Ntele, Mishek, as we talk about alliances, we need to be very careful. In 2021, Luchi, I was invited by the Oasis Forum to say, from what we are seeing, Mr. Kainde Hichilema will become president. And I said, fine. So, we would want you to be part of this success story, and Kainde are winning. And me, I said, excuse me, I'm not going to be part of that. There's nothing he's going to do. And because I know him, I am not going to pretend here that I should be supporting Umuntu Shakabombe, who support about you. You know, it's the same thing. UPND, after 4 years at you now feel to workshop PF again, you know, we can't be going round circles like that. We can't. We need to find a permanent solution to this. And the alliances of 12 years Fiara, Amishek, number I think we need to chat. 12 years Fiara, at the end of the day, I know my alliances. I have a forced alliances. More understand that people will begin fighting even more when they win power than service delivery. Alliances of any sort must be aimed at helping the ordinary Zambian people out of the current quagmire. Any alliance should be able to begin figuring out how will we reduce these tariffs. Ama light na dula sana. Tukabozishana umutendo. Ama government sabalesa kabiye mwa misisi lelo. Mfulanga yaloka. Ile ngira mayanda yabantu. Mfulanga yaloka. Ile ngira mayanda yabantu. Those are things we should be dealing with. Kabiye ndukuma yango drivers. Government don't say serious. If you are mana yango drivers, twala basunga shani aba. Twala basunga shani aba. As opposed to just saying, Isenipam. The citizens first, for avoidance of doubt. The CF was not formed to assist anybody to get into power. Because they keep saying, oh, that was selfish, that was selfish. So that will help you to get into power, to continue enjoying, to continue. Well, we're not there for that. The CF is there for service delivery. We want to help the Zambian people. It is for that reason, in case you have forgotten, sir, that is why I resigned as Foreign Affairs Minister, abandoning comfort to say I'll be with the people of Alechula. So, we are not doing things just for purposes of convenience. You will do the same regrets and to galap the Mufini. The onsen you send Pamu, Mufunia, Ile low, about the regret. Ufia Balano tell him about Lungu Badi Pobuino, Palutualete. But all Nalela and Dynamo 2021, Ukutela Uyaka in the Chilamle for Ambenanko. Again, I was called names. I was called names, Luchi. You are selfish. You are power hungry. Just because Nakana support Aka in the Chilamelo for Ampamba, Nakana, Apopene, we have any problem. Because now if you win. And I don't know how long I have to live in this life. I have to do what is right. And I am happy that the Central Committee of our party is solely in charge of this process. And they will be making evaluations. Which alliances we have to associate ourselves with. And how can we get into government, working with other partners. That will focus on alleviating the suffering of the people of Zambia. It should be about the people, not about individual parties.
Okay. There's a couple. I want to read a couple of text messages before I go back to the phone lines. Let me start with this. Honorable Kalaba left PF for alleged corruption. What corruption was he talking about, and what strategies is his government going to pursue to fight against corruption?
I think I was very clear when I left government. I was very clear. I said the things that are happening now. My ministers, my ministers, they are employing their own people. They are doing those things. I said I can't be part of that, and I left government. I think I was very clear. People said go and complain to Corruption Commission. I said the Zambian people themselves will see. There were a lot of things that were being discussed at that time, which were everything that was being procured was in complete suspect. And I didn't want to be part of that. Because I believe that service to the nation is more important than self-aggrandizement. So, how are we going to fight corruption? We'll take on corruption very, very seriously. We'll not do as the UPND is doing. The UPND have said when you're investigating a minister, don't tell the nation. How can you fight corruption like that? Umuntu na isha tuwaye musta investigate. But mule mpangira na tea. mulampangira na tea, alila na biscuits, na corruption yako pamutwe. You don't want to tell the public. You are also complicit. You are aiding corruption in that fashion. Vakaunda would not tolerate that. Vachiluga would not tolerate that. Vasata would not tolerate that. They would not tolerate those things. But Amabanesu, they are protecting themselves in government, so that they show themselves that it's a clean government. This is one of the most corrupt governments, very corrupt governments, that Zambia has ever seen in the history of our republic. And when they get out of office, they came in government for their own aggrandizement. That is why I want to tell you, 300 units, I said, 180. At 3,000, they don't think that now quarter life. So you can imagine these people, the owners of the party who have believed in the vision, have sustained it. Yeah, country Mozambique if you're in the land, because whoever to level of president is one thing. Whoever panga party you get in Chawam. But it is easy to say na life samina mu UPND or na life samina mu PF. And then but when they ask you, they isolate you, make your party. Let's see how you are going to perform. Ninkondo, the CF has not been relying on any people that have gone to the Lord. When we are campaigning, we don't rely on Mr. Sata. When we are campaigning, we don't rely on Mr. Edgar Lungu. We rely on our policies. To afia bantu, ukutila wa minibus driver, ifika na chimbui, tefika na maikata. That waisa my illegal miners imwe. They are calling you illegal miners. Kalaba ngaisa. Church relation is chapel. The people are getting the message and they are buying in our message. That is why we are growing. So please, it is the local people who are supporting us. And being captured, is this the time? Ingawa captured. I have a risk. You know what? Money is important. But on the 10 priorities of my life, money does not even appear there. There are much more important things in life. And that is what I think people need to understand. Ukutila, na ifo benenga twale na yo wali mukasa mamwe bale na yo wali. Ba UPND bali ko jamashiko. Bale na yo wali paliponse. Naba nesu bene ba FTD bale na ifmali all over the place. We never had this shiko if you to afia bantu, if you to ko bashiranga to Western government. So our growth remains the way it is, and we are happy that we are being taken seriously. for August 13th.
Okay. 226-410-978, 895. Hello, good morning. Good morning, sir. What's your name?
I'm gonna shoot him.
Okay, all right.
What president is he?
I think you met the current president.
The current president, yes. Well, it's still around.
Thanks, sir.
Morning, Mr. Kalaba.
Good morning, sir.
What's your name? Okay, James, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to find out, Mr. Kalaba. I think there's such a challenge concerning the deadline.
I'm quiet.
You know, recently government changed the policy where withholding taxes. The mining and other big companies. Now they've changed the would transfer the work withholding taxes to individuals or small companies. Now the challenge that we have, the government were failing to get the money from the mine. Now the failure that we get the money from the mine is going to solve that problem. And they're not giving us the taxes. And meanwhile, they are failing to give us taxes. In meantime, in other ways, the big companies will go where we are supplying and the other big companies.
There's been a change in policy, ZRA policy, where they are asking the mines to withhold taxes, withholding taxes on mines. He supplied, him and others supplied
Goods.
Goods to where normally they'll be able to get this money quickly, but because of this withholding tax issue, they're not able to get this money as quickly as they should.
Okay. I have taken note of that issue of Wombesha. But in saying that, we still believe that President Chancellor Robert, we are working with them. But if we care for all our citizens first, kwenda nechimwela yo alliance ingene more alliance what alliance are to social alliance but every alliance have to be scrutinized. Katula ifwaya ife tuwa Kenya again ife tule wekela ukabidi ife ntufumo fa utomaze tufiwombe ife tule patikisha futi will regret. Like spell example in 2021 wakaenda ichile manparade opano na liba kanina tawe imweta mulingire tetimubombe uyo muri mwa president ulusapato wakulishi.
Here's two questions from someone via the text. First of all, what's your take on the village concept? It's an idea I heard of back in the day from General Godfrey Nyanda, focusing on growing economic activity to the outskirts of the capital city. Do you have such an idea in mind as CF?
Village concept is basically centralization. And you and I have been talking about centralization. We have said centralization is key. You might call it whatever name you want to call it, but the best way to do service delivery is to ensure that in Kasama they can get their passports. That is service delivery. The best way to ensure that they have got best hospitals. They should not only be UTH here, only in Lusaka. We should have another form of a UTH in a place like Kasama, in a place like Isoka, so that service delivery is enhanced. That is how the CF is going to work one in government.
Okay, he or she says the second part of the question is, you speak well, but implementation of everything that you've spoken so well about also depends on the people who are around you. what guarantee do you have that your team comprises of people that carry the same passion and love for the country like you do?
You know, I think one of the things where you can really extrapolate this from is the fact that these are people that have stood with the party in its ups and downs. We have gone through a lot. We have gone through a situation where we're getting zero in the elections to getting thousands. They have never moved. When we got 20 votes, they never moved. They keep on going. Now, these are people that are not in a hurry for currency or for money. And because of that quality, that is how you test leaders. Because of that quality, even when they come in government, their resilience which they have showed in opposition, they will still show it when we form government. Because character is like a pregnancy. You can never hide it. The problem that we have with the UPND and some other governments is because there are so many chances. People will just come, so they don't care when they get into government. But the training that our colleagues are getting, the Kasese Botas, the Professor Rupias, the Professor Chibangulas, the Faith Montalis, we've got a litany of leaders that have stuck with us all this time because they believe that we are going to make progress one day. A guy called one of the MCCs, Brian Chonya, was having a conversation with him just last evening, and he was telling you, President, get encouraged when you see a lot of attacks happening or coming to your way on social media, because it means now they are noticing you. Now, these are colleagues that have taken time to be with Harry Kalaba when he has been at his lowest and when he's getting there. All I can tell you, it's a question of time, and soon rather than later, we'll emerge triumphant.
26841. Hello, good morning. Good morning. What's your name?
This is HH. If you like, formerly known as HH.
Kabo tumadala mwabuka buti. Mwadia.
Following you on multiple platforms when you appear either on TV or on radio. But congratulations for you standing firm all this time around. But I want you to give your solution clearly without politics.
Yes, sir.
You know, there are only three things that are affecting us, the poor in Zambia. Now, one is the high cost of living. Without politics, what are your solutions to the high cost of living? Please elaborate. Me, I'm going to do this to and this to lower the cost of living. Second one is the fuel cost. Fuel cost is been high. In UNIT, the way it was, MMD failed to take it back to UNIT. PF failed to take it back to 11 quarters the way it was in MMD. They took it up, even now in UPND. So what are your solutions? So that if you are going to try hard, you bring it at least the way it is now. Because I know if you win, it won't come back down. The third one is about electricity. What are your solutions to electricity? Are you going to improve the hydropower, or you are going to continue with these solar power plants this government has been trying to implement and try to bring in the country, so that we have permanent solution for load shedding, or you go for nuclear? Only no politics, please. Can you give your solutions on these three key issues? That's all, please. Don't tell no in MMD, in PF inflation was like this, we can't compare now, because those are just defensive issues. What are your solutions now? Because things in PF, they were expensive than the way they were in MMD.
Mr. HH, thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right, do you want to respond?
Thank you very much. HH has raised very important points, and he says don't bring politics when you are answering. I hardly play politics on serious issues by HH. I'll start with your last question, where you've talked about the issue of which energy source do you think you rely on. I'll tell you, like I said earlier, that the Citizens First has identified nuclear energy as one of the sources that we'll rely on. Nuclear energy, right now, the capacity which we are trying to produce here in Chongwe is going to be giving us about 20,000 megawatts of power. Currently, ZESCO's capacity is about 3,400 megawatts. When you put all the sources of energy that they have, they only do 3,400. Now, with that nuclear energy, we'll be doing 20,000 megawatts. So it means Zambia's load shedding problems will go permanently. And that means that we are going to be exporting power to the DRC, which has got a lot of mines, Katanga province, and once we give them that power, we'll get the much required dollars to enable our country begin to get stable.
Sorry, did you say
Second,
what was the total figure that you said? Was it 24,000?
For the nuclear power?
Yeah, for the
20,000.
20,000. Not 2,000.
20,000.
20,000.
20,000 megawatts.
Okay. Was that the thinking, or this is now increasing?
No, that is the thinking, that we need to have 20,000 megawatts of power.
Oh, but
produced.
not what they had thought when they had the idea. Okay, sorry.
It's 20 years.
Okay,
Yes, it's 20,000.
Okay.
Then, if we get that, we are going to have enough power for export and enough power for use in this country. Then we have also said we also need to improve our hydropower stations. We need to move our hydropower stations from areas where they have told us that the rains are no longer happening, like in the southern corridor. We take them in the central corridor, where it is raining heavily, Mukushi, Serenge, those areas. We begin building hydropower stations to enable our people not run short of electricity. So, Mr. HH, that is what we are going to work on. For solar, solar can do only as much. It can, solar is also conditional. It depends on the weather for it to be effective. But these various sources of energy that you're talking about are going to be very effective. Then the other issue that you raised was the issue of petrol. You know, you talked about how are you going to help us with the issues of petrol. I've always said that petrol, if we build Indeni, and we have said Indeni has been shut. They said they were closing it for periodic maintenance. It has been shut permanently. Luchi, what we need to do now is to begin making Indeni become a refinery. We want to procure the hydrocarbon cracker to make Indeni a refinery, so that we stop pumping finished products into this country. Once you have a refinery, once you have Indeni which can store your fuel for some time, it means that you are able to absorb shocks, economic shocks that will come in the economy, because you have got your products stored. It will not be it's like at a domestic level, Luchi. When you bought your chickens, even if they increase chickens in the market, if you already bought 2 weeks ago and it's in the fridge, it will not affect you. Whatever the market does, because you've already got the chickens already stored in the fridge. It is the same at national level. So CF government will ensure that Indeni is capitalized. We begin storing enough fuel in our manner. You already have for 6 months, so it means the cost of living in that manner is arrested.
How long would it take to build a nuclear power plant whose capacity is 20,000 megawatts? 20,000.
Look, it's not about how long it will be. A project, that's why we said, for the long term, the nuclear power plant project has to kick in. In the short term, we begin moving hydropower stations from the southern corridor to the northern corridor, where the rainfall pattern is not uninterrupted. also we look at hydropower stations like the one in Shuangandu, in Muchinga province. Those ones need to be upped from producing the 12 or 15 megawatts Shuangandu is or 20 megawatts they are producing. You up them by beginning to produce much more. The same with Msonda Falls in Wapula province. You up them so they begin producing much more. In that way, we are going to deal with the issues of electricity challenges.
The reason I ask is I know in Kenya they're looking at also nuclear power plant with the same capacity, and they're thinking by 2040 we should be able to have that, and that's a very long. That's a long way. And that's why I was asking, how long would it take?
How long it will take is not a problem. That's why you see it is. We are
It's
delaying
long-term.
our own progress. It's a long-term project,
Okay.
but we are delaying our own term. And leaders should never be thinking in short term.
Yeah.
We should always be thinking long-term, even when long gone back to the Lord. It is the effects that will remain for our children's children. People do plant bamboo trees. It's not for them to benefit from them, but they leave them for generations. At the end of the day, it's not affecting the people.
Okay. There was a conversation, I think it was sometime last year, that IDC was looking at signing a deal for a new petroleum refinery. Is that part of the refinery that you're talking about? Because what's the point of building another one?
Look, how do you talk about building another refinery when you already have a refinery that you need to up? For us as Citizens First, we'll focus on Indeni first, because Indeni has got the capacity, but it's just that it's got obsolete equipment. Our machine ya Indeni ya likota. So when our machine ya Suma, it will begin giving you the value for what it is. Before you even think of building something else, make use of what you have. Tetuwe muntu ukuli obutala. Obutala ta la isusha. Nakabi wafundu batambo kwa na bumbi obutala. Nomba bata wisushe uli. Ubole kulobo wala isusha. Chaka. So for us, we are systematic in what we do. Let Indeni first of all begin getting operational. Let it begin giving us value for money. You know, we are losing a lot of money. We are losing a lot of services to create jobs for the people there. Liquefied petroleum gas, which we are buying it from India. Bitumen, we are not importing it. It was coming from India. Why? Those are byproducts. Mavaslin, kerosene, it was coming from. But number, you are importing even things you should not be importing as a country. And you are here telling us about the GDP now, they were posting it about 5 to 6% growth. How can you have economic growth of those figures when you're literally importing everything? Let's be serious.
In terms of, I'm curious, why not solar? You didn't mention solar as something that you can add up upon.
Solar,
you mentioned nuclear and hydro, but not solar.
No, I said solar it depends on the environment, on the weather, and so you don't want.
But so does rain as well.
Yeah, but you store that water and then you use the turbines to begin generating power. But for this, solar panels can only get so much and it's over. So it's not a very reliable source of energy. And for domestic consumption, it is only a selected few, privileged few that can use it. But like Ruchi, the rest will not afford it.
Okay. I want to come. Just one last question about the 20,000, because it's a big number. I think that's why everyone has latched on this. What's the financing? Have you thought about what the financing would look like? Who would finance a project like this?
Look, financing a project like that, I already told you that the Russian Federation, when we signed that agreement, they were ready to come into Zambia and begin financing that kind of a project. When I was foreign minister, I attended a summit, AU summit, head of state and government summit in Addis. And we were talking about the Great Inga Dam in the DRC Congo. Africa has been struggling with issues of electricity. And so when I came back and I said, look, if they will be creating the Great Inga Dam in the DRC Congo, why can't Zambia have its own capacity to produce such kind of power? And they said, okay, let's go. So Musiska and I went to Russia and told them, look, why don't we have you, the Russians, do this kind of things for us? It will be able to supply a population of Comesa, population of Sadik, population of the Great Lakes region, because this is a great market for us. That project is not only for Zambia, it is for the region. And once we have regional projects like that, Zambia is now taking strides in economic direction and development, as opposed to always going to Mozambique, give us, give us, give us. So there was a bilateral agreement. There is a bilateral agreement. In fact, the Russians went further. They began even training our young guys who are good in sciences. They began going to Moscow to learn nuclear science and get qualified. So all that thing has come to a halt. We come into government, we need it. And I do not care if it will finish after 10 years, long after I'm gone, it is okay. But the generations coming after we have left should be able to say they were leaders who thought of the future.
Okay, 3 last questions. Chileko asks about FISIP. Chileko says that he thinks, or she thinks, that it's an expensive subsidy. Maize production should be left to commercial farmers.
I think I told you already that the best way to subsidize maize is to subsidize production. And that is, and Chileko is speaking the same language I'm speaking. Subsidize production, make fertilizer cheaper. How do you make it cheaper? Begin producing fertilizer within here. That's why Wakaunda had NCZ. Wakaunda understood that to make mini-meal affordable, NCZ needed to be proactive. You know, once the farmers get fertilizer cheaper, once they get the seed cheaper, it is easy for mini-meal to become cheaper. And I think that is the area we need to look at. How do we make production cheap? And instead of subsidizing the end product, that is not the way you do it. You subsidize production, make production cheaper, and then the maize, the bag of mini-meal will eventually be cheaper itself.
Okay. Someone that you should know very well, Frank Sichon, Citizens First, Mikushi North constituency.
Yes.
Yeah. He says, please ask him about debt swap for civil servants.
Okay. Thank you very much, Honorable Sichon. The debt swap for civil servants is on course. When we come into government, we have said that the civil servants are so stressed. If they are weak, it's because they have got a lot on their mind. Civil servants. And we have said we have to begin afresh. We are going to introduce debt swap. And remember, it is ourselves in 2021 who talked about debt swap. And I'm glad they began implementing it. But by UPND, they discarded it. When CF comes into government, Mr. Sichon, we are going to reintroduce debt swap. We want our civil servants to be absorbed out of those bonds. Not only that, when we come into government, we have said civil servants who are making contributions, I know the civil service pension scheme, the public service pension scheme, requires that one has to serve for 20 years in the public service minimum, and then be 55 years for you to qualify for the public service pension scheme. Number now 15 after serving for 15 years, you don't get the government contribution. I had a cousin, and it's sad, Luchi. I had a cousin who was working in ZAF. Died after serving 17 years. And he does not qualify because can after 20 years as a public service worker. That's when they can government can give you your pension. There are others who have worked for 5 years. They pay pension now for 20 years. The Citizens First in government has decided, and we're happy to announce to you, we have decided as Citizens First that when we come in government, we are going to review that. We are still going to calculate the 20 years that you should have gotten. Instead of giving you for the 20 years, we'll just give you for the 5 years, and 2 years was saving, and 10 years was saving, and 13, and 17, and 19. Imagine Luchi was saving for 19 years old. Your family loses all that contribution that you have done. So we are going to review that. We'll make sure that civil servants begin getting their contribution from government, even if you save for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And then we have also said civil servants will stop getting from NAPSA those bits that they get when they retire. We want our civil servants to get a lump sum. Lump sum, so that they can look after their welfare, because they get into destitution the moment they get out of those public services offices. We want to stop that. and ensure that our civil servants are taken care of.
Okay. Just one last, this is not a question. But maybe just a point. This comes from a member of the media team for the UPND talking about Ingeni. Because Ingeni was never a refinery, but a separator. It needed a
very decent human being as well. Oliver, thank you that you are following through, and look at the decency with which he's engaging the future. That talking about a new refinery, when you got obsolete equipment at Indeni, which you can easily replace. That's what Dr. Kaunda did, I think, in 1976 when he opened Indeni, is promoted. We want to take stock of what is already there before we begin thinking of building other things.
Okay. Harry Kalaba, President for the Citizens First, thank you very much for coming on the program. Anything lastly you want to say before I let you go?
Lochi, thank you very much for having me, and thank you my colleagues, the Provincial Chairman for Lusaka, Mr. Chola is here, and our colleague Sata Junior is also here. Thank you for accompanying me, colleagues. Mine is to tell our listeners and viewers from wherever they're listening to us from, to say, please, the CF is here. We are putting up a robust campaign team to ensure that we reach you where you are. In case you want to reach us, I think he's got some numbers. Please, you can go ahead and announce the numbers of those that you want them to reach.
Good morning, viewers. I'm Chola. My numbers are 0977 36 6107 or 977 36 6107. For Lusaka, that is the number which you can communicate, and you'll be directed, given the other leaders, that you'll be where you be.
Thank you very much. But you can also call Marjorie Mutakwa on 0977 779133. 0977 779133. You can also call MCC Philemon Zulu on 0977 432211. 0977 432211. And Mr. Ntele, please get in touch. I've not forgotten. If you still have my number, please call me. Let's talk. We need you in the Citizens First. We push the agenda. God bless you.